Should Utah be considered the favorite to win the Big 12 in 2024? The answer is yes, and we're talking about why right now.
You are Locked On Utes, your daily podcast on the Utah Utes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for making Locked On Utes your first listen every single day. We are available on all platforms, including YouTube and wherever you may get your podcast. If this is your first time listening to our show, make sure you like and subscribe. Love interacting with all of you in the YouTube comments as well as on social media where you can follow our show at Locked On Utes on X. Today's episode of Locked On Utes is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. My name is JT Wistrcill, former intern inside the University of Utah Athletic Department. Excited to be joined on today's show by Spencer McLaughlin, the host of Locked On College Football. And Spencer, when talking about this Utah football team as it projects to their success in the Big 12 in 2024, instantly, I feel really good about it right now. And not just because of everything happening at Arizona, because we have already seen, yes, some players are going to transfer, but Fafita is going to stay, McMillan's going to stay. They still got some guys there and in place, but they're still going to lose some because of the portal already. And look, this Utah team, just when I focus on this Utah team, I really like what I see. One of the best quarterbacks in college football is coming back to Utah and Cam Rising. And I know, yep, he didn't play last year. And I know the highlight reels and everything, they're not the craziest things you've ever seen. But he's a two-time conference champion. Very few guys can say that. He's won and stepped up in the biggest stages, in the biggest moments. There's a guy named Caleb Williams, who'd be the first overall pick in the NFL draft. He went toe-to-toe against him and emerged victorious not once, but twice during the 2022 regular season. Outside of Cam, it's one of the best tight end rooms in college football. You got three starters returning on the offensive line, three capable running backs. Even just added Deion Sanders, a guy who already has a 1,000-yard season under his belt at the collegiate level. Little down here at USC, but I blame that more on the amount of mouths the Trojans had to feed at the receiver spot than Sanders himself. Defensively, one of the best front sevens in college football with everyone back. Yep, you lose your top pass rusher, but you got three other guys in there, all who had several sacks on the season a year ago, and a secondary that, look, definitely needs to be retooled. Your top corners back, and also Utah defensive backs, whenever they've needed to replace guys, they've done pretty well. Jalen Johnson's doing his thing in the NFL for a reason, because Utah defensive backs tend to do really well. They got some nice recruits in here, and also Kyle Whittingham. Need I say more? Dude always finds ways to win. I feel like Utah's roster and coaching gives them the best chance to win the Big 12 in 2024.
I don't know who you'd favor ahead of them. It doesn't mean they're a shoo-in, and this is, when USC was running the Pac-12, RIP, and it was USC against everybody else, and can anybody beat them? It's not that size of a gap, but it's hard to not look at the Utes and say seventh-year quarterback who's been an all-conference guy and two-time conference champion, as you mentioned. Kyle Whittingham does nothing but win, and you lose some players on the defensive side of the ball. That's not new to Kyle Whittingham. He's seen all of this before. He's developed guys before. He's had to replace impact players before. Once upon a time, they lost Clark Phillips. They lost Devin Lloyd. And there were a lot of other good players that went on to the NFL or ended their collegiate careers. And Kyle Whittingham found other guys. He found Jonah Ellis, and he found just a litany of Sione Vaki. Like, these are just run-of-the-mill problems for Kyle Whittingham to have. It's nothing new for him. And I don't know how many other teams can say they've got a seventh-year quarterback as good as Cam Rising. I feel like Bowman down at Oklahoma State has been around for a very long time, but if you're going to give me a choice between him or Cam Rising, I will take Cam Rising every day of the week and twice on Sunday. So I think that for the Utes, they should absolutely be the Big 12 favorite going into 2024. There are some other good teams, but we'll talk about later. Their schedule lines up really favorably for them, and I just think that their culture is not like anything that currently exists in the Big 12 because it is one of defense. And if you have a sufficient offense, that resulted in back-to-back Pac-12 championships. That resulted in knocking off USC and Oregon in consecutive seasons. So I think this Utah team is poised to go into the Big 12 and compete right away with Cam Rising. And I love the Deion Sanders edition. I think that's the sort of guy out wide that Utah just hasn't had in the last several years. I mean, they've had elite tight ends, Brant Keithy, Dalton Kincaid, even Thomas Yasmin before he got hurt was really good. I think that they've had okay receivers. They haven't had all conference caliber receivers, or I think anybody even close. I mean, who are the best receivers for Utah in the last couple of years? Probably Devon Bailey, Money Parks.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, again,
hey, Britton Covey. Yeah, Britton Covey.
Britton Covey, sure, better as a return man than as a wide receiver. So, like, that makes my point. So Singer is a guy who can come in and with Cam Rising present an option at all three levels that he just hasn't had before. You combine that with whoever's going to be next at the tight end position, which just like defense, I trust Utah to be able to churn out. That's something they've done very, very well. If I'm not mistaken, Kyle Whittingham's brother is the tight ends coach, is he not?
Yes.
Damn, I'm good. Anyway, I love everything that Utah is doing because it's the same stuff they've always done. Rinse and repeat. Utah is here, and the Dorian Singer edition, that's a big, big time move.
It's massive. It was the biggest need this team had to fill. When you look at what changed for them from the bowl game to the regular season, yes, Bryson Barnes played even worse in the bowl game. I think a big part of the reason was no Devon Bailey. Utah had other running backs for when a Jaquindon Jackson would get hurt or, Mekhi Bernard missing time this season. They had no one who was able to replace the version of Devon Bailey we saw against teams like Washington and some of the other games he really popped off with some big numbers. So Singer is a reliable guy there as well. There's other receivers there as well, like Money Parks. I just need Money Parks to be the Money Parks he was against USC in those games where he made one or two big plays. And it's like, outside of that, I got the elite tight end back. I got Brant Keithy. And I know Brant and Cam Rising have health questions, but also this. We know they're going to at least be ready to play come the fall. It's been even another long chunk of the offseason. I'd much rather have the question be, can guys stay healthy and return to their form rather than the unknown of, I've never seen this guy do it before, but I can project him to do that. I know for a fact that Cam and Brant at their best are especially Brant, it might be one of, if not the best tight end in college football. And Cam's going to be a top 10 to 15 quarterback just in terms of a guy who's ability to step up and make plays in there too. So as we just said, yeah, Utah doesn't have a perfect roster, but even the things where it's like, I don't know about this, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt because year in and year out, betting against Kyle Whittingham has been bad business. And yep, didn't go great to the end of this year, but the amount of injuries it took, I mean, even against Arizona.
This was one of his best coaching jobs, JT. 100%.
Tremendous. It was tremendous. Even against Arizona.
The fact that they went 8-4, that they were 6-1, that they beat Caleb Williams in the Coliseum. I mean, everything they accomplished this year is a testament to why you should feel good about doubling down on betting on Kyle Whittingham, because the number of coaches that could go through that Pac-12, which was the deepest conference in the country and the best quarterback conference in the country, for him to do that and end the year 8-4, losing the bowl game, that was not a great performance. I will grant you that. David Braun at Northwestern was just better that particular day. But not having Devon Bailey, I think, hurt Bryson Barnes. Still, Utah should have played better in that game. But you know what wasn't missing in that game? Their defense. And correct me if I'm wrong, Jonah Ellis didn't play in that game, right?
Ellis, no Cole Bishop, no Sione Vaki.
A lot of guys didn't play, and the defense was still there. So I know that defense is going to be there, and there is no other defensive culture in the Big 12 that compares to what Utah has done. They have been in the top 3 of the conference in every major stat over the last really 4 or 5 years consistently. That's where they've been. That's where I expect them to be in the Big 12. If you give them the offensive piece, which they'll have with Cam Rising, who should be fully healthy, and Brant Keithy, they've had plenty of time now to recover because they didn't play all this season. Yeah, give me Utah as the favorites to win the Big 12 until I am shown evidence to the contrary.
We feel great about Utah's roster on paper, but the schedule is also very favorable for Utah. We're going to be diving in and discussing that schedule and why it favors Utah just in terms of the opponents. We don't have all the dates yet to be exact, but the opponent list in general is out, and it's one that favors Utah. I want to tell you why I believe that is a big reason that Utah will and can win the Big 12 in 2024 in one moment. But first, I want to talk to you about one of the sponsors of today's episode of Locked On Utes in our friends at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Also want to talk to you about another sponsor of our episode of Locked On Utes today, and it's our friends at LinkedIn Talent Solutions. At the start of the new year, every small business owner is asking themselves the same question. What's the one move I can make that'll take my business to the next level in 2024? LinkedIn Jobs knows that your success all depends on the team you surround yourself with. That's why LinkedIn Jobs has created the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn is a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it the best place to hire. Hiring is easy when you have that many qualified candidates. So easy, in fact, that 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. That's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. All caps, no spaces. To post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. Spencer, you were a little early on the second segment sip there.
I was a tad bit early there, but you got to do what you got to do to be ready.
Well, and that's what Utah will be doing all offseason to get themselves ready for the Big 12 schedule. And this is a Big 12 schedule to start out for Utah, and just the schedule in general for Utah, honestly, it really favors them. I mean, we can start with Utah's non-conference schedule just to give them momentum. They're going to take on Southern Utah. And, you know, Spencer, I feel like that'll be a win. What do you think?
Here's what I can guarantee you about that game. The T-Birds are going to show up, and they're going to play their butts off from the moment that ball is kicked off until the scoreboard says 00 on the clock in the fourth quarter, because that's the way Coach Fitz and the boys roll.
And for those of you who are listening who are wondering why Spencer's decided to defend, of all teams, Southern Utah, that is where he is the voice of the Thunderbirds at. But moving off of Southern Utah, you get Baylor at home. It's weird that this is a non-conference game, but it was scheduled out in advance. Look, Baylor nearly fired Dave Aranda. This program's a little bit of a mess right now. Maybe there's a world where this could be a trap game for Utah at another point in the season. They're not going to drop this back-to-back home game to this Baylor team. And then you get the Utah State game. And once, you know, hey, Bryson Barnes at Utah State now. This one has a fun angle to it. Should be exciting. Utah will take care of business and win this game too. There's a reason Bryson's at Utah State and not another Power 5 team. But even looking at the schedule outside of that, once you get into the Big 12 portion of it, I feel like it's a really favorable schedule for Utah, Spencer.
I could not agree more. The road schedule in conference play, I don't think it could set up any better. You've got Arizona State, Colorado, Houston, Oklahoma State, and UCF. So yeah. UCF went 6-7 this past year. They're fine. Houston's got a new head.
AJ Jefferson, he's solid.
Houston's got a new head coach because they're having to rebuild. They made a good hire. Willie Fritz from Tulane did a really, really good job with the Green Wave. Won the Cotton Bowl 2 seasons ago now over USC. But it's a rebuild there in Houston. Oklahoma State, okay, Stillwater's a tough place to go. That's that's probably the toughest road game here. Sure. We'll see how good Colorado ends up being. But this is just not a schedule that strikes fear into your heart if you're a Utah fan. You look at this schedule and go, we should be in the 12-team playoff. That to me is a standard for success in 2024 because Utah should absolutely have an opportunity to play for the Big 12 championship. And at the very least, they should be 10-2 going into it. That should be like the minimum expectation of success because this is a very favorable schedule. You've got Southern Utah, then you've got Baylor, then you go at Utah State. You got a really, really good chance to start the season 3-0, barring a major stumble. There are going to be heavy favorites in all of those games. So once you are in that position, which Utah has been in before, most recently this past year, you look and say, okay, where are they going to be underdogs or where are they going to be only a slight favorite? Oklahoma State I still think they're going to be a pretty decent favorite at Colorado, and I think they're going to win that football game until I'm shown evidence to the contrary. Arizona State is on an upward trajectory. They're not at Utah's level yet, and I don't love their quarterback situation at the moment unless Jaden Rashad is ready to pop in year 2 for Kenny Dillingham and company. Houston and UCF just don't scare me. And then you've got Arizona at home, which is huge, and you have a coaching change there, so you don't know how Brent Brennan is going to do coming over from San Jose State. And then you've got BYU at home in the Holy War, but again, home game. Utah rarely loses at home, unless they're playing Oregon, of course. And then you've got TCU and Iowa State to play at home. Look at JT's face is just frozen because I snuck in that tiny little dig.
So much goodwill for yourself, and then you
I know. I just destroyed it. I shattered it into 1,000 pieces. But the other home games are TCU and Iowa State. I mean, here's a serious question. Serious question. Depending on when these games are specifically scheduled, can you see a world in which Utah does not play a ranked opponent this year?
I could. I'd be surprised.
Because here's where I'm coming from. Southern Utah, Baylor, and Utah State. At the time of them playing Utah, none of them are going to be ranked. Okay, let's go down the list. Arizona State, not cracking the top 25 this year. Houston, no. UCF, I seriously doubt it. Arizona, probably.
They should be.
But you have a coaching change, so there's an element of the unknown. Yeah. BYU didn't wow anybody in year 1 in the Big 12. TCU just went 5-7. Iowa State is not a team that often cracks the top 25. Yeah. Oklahoma State, I think, is your best shoe-in. Followed by Arizona.
They're a roller coaster.
Oklahoma State's all over the place. They were not a very good team in 2023.
It's just a fact. I mean, once again, I know they get Alan Bowman back, but he threw 15 touchdowns to 14 interceptions. I love Ollie Gordon. He is a monster. But I also can't forget the UCF loss. It was 45-3.
It's 55-3, I think.
Was it really 55-3? Was that bad?
I think. Let's double check for the sake of accuracy. Because that game was 45-3. You're correct. That's so much better.
That's what you have me on.
That was a team. Now, it's going to be a different team in 2024. Everyone is different on a year-to-year basis. I'll 100% grant that to the Cowboys. And Mike Gundy's a good coach. He's not going to ever be bad. But which team, it's unlikely as you spell it out, no one is ever ranked when they play Utah. How many times are they going to have a top 10 team?
Yeah,
they might not have one all season. They might not have a top 15 team all season. You could see a world in which Arizona without Jed Fish goes 8-4 or 9-3 is good, but not quite what they were last year. That's a legit possibility, though they're retaining some talent in ways that they need to. Oklahoma State, I'll wait and see what they're going to be next year because boy, they did not impress me at all last year. I was on that train. Back when Locked On Pac-12 was a thing, I was on that train anytime it came up that Oklahoma State was not a good football team. They got housed at home by South Alabama, who was okay in the Sun Belt. They were okay, average in the Sun Belt, and they blew it. That was not a good football team. It just wasn't. So I think that schedule sets up so favorably for Utah because Baylor was their, kind of big non-conference game, and now it's a conference game. Are they playing 10 conference games next year, or how's that working?
They are. No, they do. They have to. Yeah, because the Baylor game, they have to play 10 conference games, basically, because they scheduled that as a non-conference game a while back. Wow. That's why they already played Baylor last year, too. That
Big 12 move came on such short notice that they can't swap that out for someone. Wow.
Yeah. We're not like Michigan.
Swap that out and played Oregon.
We're not like Michigan. We don't duck Power 5 teams.
I can appreciate that jab. Michigan deserved to be the national champion this year, but what they have done with their non-conference scheduling is an abomination to college football. It is absolutely terrible, and I hate it down to my core. It is so infuriating for many reasons. But you should have dropped the Baylor game, picked up Oregon State instead.
I wish they did do that just for the familiarity of that. That would have been something fun. Hopefully in the future.
Hopefully.
Pac-12, we still believe. But keeping with just what you talked about with some of these, you going on Oklahoma State hard. Cowboys, all you had to do was, yes, you still got into the Big 12 championship game. I remember when Utah got into the Pac-12 championship game back in 2022, and everyone was like, I think Oregon and Washington are better. And Oregon straight up did beat Utah head-to-head, but the way that worked out mathematically, those schools didn't take care of business, so Utah got to get in. It was all set up. USC, Caleb Williams, they're going to avenge their one loss, go to the college football playoff. Utah smokes them. What did Oklahoma State have the chance to do against Texas? They already beat Oklahoma. Some people are, what's that? I love it on Twitter. I see that thing like, they're calling you frauds. They say you can't do this. How will you respond? And then you know what the retweet about Oklahoma State would have said about them against Texas? They were right, because they got blown the doors off them in that game. 49-21. And even before that, you lost to a BYU team, which that BYU team was better at the beginning of the year when Slovis was healthy rather than the end. They took them double overtime to beat that BYU team 40-34 even. And that was at home. So yeah, that's where our questions come up with Oklahoma State, but it's a very favorable schedule for Utah. And I'm very curious to see how it plays out for them this year. But honestly, Spencer, because of a lot of the themes we've talked about, I feel very good about the future of Utah football beyond the Cam Rising era, which is going to come to a close for sure. He's not getting an 8th year eligibility. This is for sure the final year of Cam Rising. So even after Cam, I'm feeling good about the future of Utah football. And I want to talk about why that is. And I feel like Utah has a chance to sustain some success in one moment. But first, I want to talk to you all about one of the sponsors of today's episode of Locked On Utes, and our friends at FanDuel Sportsbook. The NFL regular season has wrapped up, but the playoffs are well underway. And one of the best weekends for football, the divisional weekend, is almost here. And there is time to get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. The app is easy to use, and there are many different ways to bet, like live same-game parlays. You can find bets in the new Explore tab. You can make a parlay in the Parlay Hub, the best way to find popular parlays, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet a layup. FanDuel, the official partner of NFL. Spencer, you got your eyes on any of the games this weekend?
Can't say I've taken a peek at them, because I'd be rolling with the chalk picks, man. I'd roll with Bills Chiefs is going to be fantastic.
That's the one. Hey,
Bills Chiefs is going to be the game. I think the Texans could hit a wall against Baltimore. Though Lamar Jackson has only won one playoff game in his career. So we'll see if he's able to reverse that trend. I think Todd Monk and the OC will make sure that changes. On Saturday, I think the 49ers roll over the Packers. The 49ers are very good. And the Lions playing the
Buccaneers.
Oh, yeah, the Bucks. Come on.
Matchup of top overall picks from years ago. Come on. Neither with their team, because they were bust, but they figured it out now.
Well, they have clearly figured it out, and good for those guys, especially Jared Goff and the Lions.
Yes.
6.5 feels like a lot against that Bucks defense, but the Lions at home are a very good team, and there's a stat out there about Jared Goff. I think he covers at home something like 60 to 70% of the time. He's been a very good quarterback at home. I like the Lions in that spot. I think they're about a 6.5 point favorite according to FanDuel. I lean towards them. Give me the 49ers to blow the doors off the Packers the way that they did to the Cowboys, which was glorious. Ravens and Texans, I'd stay away. I don't feel great about that. And I'd go with the Bills. Man, the Chiefs are not that good. Not this year. I love Mahomes. I'd go with the Bills in that one. They're only favored by 2.5. I'd swallow that in a heartbeat. I think the Bills are going to win that football game. They're playing really, really good football right now in Buffalo.
Hey, we're all rolling with Dalton Kincaid too, so I think
exactly.
But make sure you guys head over to FanDuel to check out those great odds today. Also want to talk to you all about another sponsor of our episode today. It's our friends at UCCU. Learn and Earn, the UCCU mobile banking app that pays your entire family to learn about money. Kids look to parents to become more financially literate. Parents don't always know the answers. Learn and Earn breaks down financial topics into fun, bite-sized educational games like quizzes and trivia. Every time a family member completes a topic, they earn points that can occur and can be redeemed for gift cards to stores like Amazon, Apple, Sephora, Walmart, Nike, and more. There is age-appropriate content for every member of the family who compete against each other and track their progress on leaderboards. Learn and Earn is inside the UCCU mobile banking app, so you can play anytime, anywhere. The more you play, the more you learn. And the more you learn, the more you earn. Learn and Earn, part of UCCU's award-winning Be-Money Smart Youth Banking Program, helping kids, teens, and parents have fun while becoming more financially literate together. UCCU, love where you bank. Spencer, we're obviously all very high on this year's Utah team. But I think there's a lot of reasons to be high on Utah going forward. And I'm not just talking about until Kyle Whittingham retires. I think the culture in place at Utah is one that can carry on and be transitioned well. And, I always used to say like Ohio State at Ryan Day. I know everyone loves to act like the wheels have fallen off since Urban Meyer there, but let's not forget they were a
disastrous program.
They were a missed field goal away from beating Georgia and winning a national championship because we know they were going to beat the crap out of that TCU team.
Oh, yeah, they would have.
So I love college football fans sometimes. But anyway.
It's fat. The idea that you can actually be behind the notion that Ryan Day shouldn't be Ohio State's head coach is pretty hilarious.
It's insane.
He's lost 3 times in a row to Michigan. Okay. Okay, they were driving for the win on the road this year. Mm-hmm. What are we doing?
And he had such a great quarterback. It was so in demand. He's only at Syracuse now playing for a Big Orange. It's out of control. I think it's insane as well. But the same thing. I feel like whoever Utah moves off of, it's probably still going to be Morgan Scalley. I feel like that'll be the guy. I just feel like the culture is in a strong place where Utah should continue to be successful. And it's the same things we've talked about with Utah, right? Like we feel good about the defensive backs because of what's happened. The offensive line every year, while they weren't as good this year as they had been year past, they were still pretty good. They only got beat up by some of the best teams. And even in those best teams outside of, once again, the Oregon game, and I'll give the Arizona game was included in that as well. Utah was in it against the likes of Washington and USC, still holding their own against some of those, maybe not the USC D-line as much, but the Washington one. That's a more of a formidable D-line there too, holding their own. And Utah, some people like to say Utah is a little bit of a quarterback development problem, but I'll just say this about Utah quarterbacks. When Utah's main starting quarterback stays healthy for the season, they've been pretty good. That goes back to Tyler Huntley and even Cam Rising. The COVID year, which was a disaster for Utah, Cam was supposed to be the quarterback. He started and then got hurt right away. And even the year after that, yes, they went with Charlie Brewer, but the guy who started most of the games that year, Cam Rising, then won the job back and was a starter. When Utah has their main guy at QB, they're tough to beat. This team is consistent. They're well coached. They play the right way. They got good players out there. I feel like Utah is going to continue to succeed. We're high on them right now because of how many guys they have with championship experience, but this was a team that also had a lot of championship experience back in the 2019 team, and it was like, can Utah do it again? And they didn't even win the Pac-12 championship that year. It was the next batch of players that did. Utah's going to be fine in the Big 12 for the long haul.
Well, they have proven themselves a consistent conference contender. They played in 4 of the final 5 Pac-12 championship games in which a full season of college football was actually played on the field. I mean, they played in 4 in a row and they won 2 of them. And then their quarterback was hurt and they managed to go 8-4 with a backup who's starting at, a solid but not top tier Mountain West program in Utah State for 2024. So there's nothing about this Utah program that appears to be changing to me. Their recruiting profile is still about the same. They're going to focus more on player development and they'll have a couple transfers here and there, but Cam Rising and Dorian Singer, you bring in guys like that or either having them back or introducing them to the program. You make those sorts of moves, and that's all Kyle Whittingham has ever needed. And he's going into a worse conference. Like by any objective measure, this new look Big 12, even with the 4 former Pac teams, is a worse conference than the Pac-12 that they've been playing in for the last several years, where Washington is winning double-digit games every year, and Oregon beat them twice in a row, and USC has got Lincoln Riley, and Arizona was on the rise and still could be in the Big 12. We'll see what they do with their new head coach. I don't see any indicators that Utah is going to change course. Like what if you're talking about, well, it's not going to be the same, it's going to be different. There's usually something to indicate. A coordinator leaves, a coach leaves, an instrumental player leaves, like UCLA, for instance, right? Still had a good season overall. They ended the year 8-5, but I was down on them before the year. Why? Because they lost a guy who was at the center of their rebuild, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, and he was a really important player. And I remember hearing from UCLA fans all the time, DTR wasn't that good. He was turnover prone. He was this. And I said, okay, you watch what happens when he's not there for you this year. And they went 7-5 and they scored 7 points against a 3-9 ASU team. So I think that for Utah, everything that they were doing in the Pac-12 can be done in the Big 12, and they're just in a worse conference. I don't know how they are in a conference contender year in and year out.
Absolutely agree. I have to smile when you brought up UCLA too, because Man, some of the comments that week before Utah played about what Dante Moore was going to do. And I'm like, I know he's looked good against these out of conference teams, but they haven't really played anyone. And this Utah defense is pretty good.
And they got screwed by Michigan in that sense. They were supposed to have a home and home with Michigan, and the Wolverines bailed on them. So yes, they had a weak non-conference, but it wasn't their fault.
That would have gone really well for Dante Moore, by the way. And I know he's your guy now at Oregon, but I'm like, if we're just going off of what we saw.
Yeah, Dante Moore against Michigan. Yikes.
He threw a pick six his very first play against Utah.
Yeah, if Penix was held to 255, 2 picks and a touchdown, I don't know that Dante Moore would have clipped 150 yards through the air.
Yeah, I'm not sure he would have either. I think it would have been an ugly one. But either way, Utah's future in the Big 12 is not ugly. And Spencer, there's so much crazy news going on in the world of college football right now. If people want to try to keep track of everything, where should they head over to?
Well, you can follow me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at @SMcLaughlinCFB, and I'm the host of the new show, Locked On College Football. Same feed where you may have once upon a time listened to Locked On Pac-12. It's on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. We're talking about the biggest stories every day in the greatest sport on planet Earth, that be college football, all year round. So go check it out. But I think Utah going into the Big 12, as I said, contender every single year.
Absolutely agree. Spencer, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, appreciate it.
That's going to do it for today's edition of Locked On Utes, but we'll be back with you tomorrow talking all things Utah football.